Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's your boy, Pigskin Pete. Happy Thursday to everybody. Happy coronavirus quarantine to everybody. Anyway, due to this whole quarantine thing with kids in the house and everything, it's been kind of hard to do these videos without distraction, but I'm going to try today. So, a lot of people are big fans of these top 5 lists that I'm doing. At this point, I've done quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and defensive linemen was the last one. I promised that the next one I would do would be the top 5 greatest linebackers in Clemson history. Now, a lot like the other positions, at this point, there's so many great linebackers that have come through Clemson that I can't give the top 5 greatest. I mean, I think some of them are the greatest, but at this point, it's just my top 5 favorite. And so I would love to hear from all of you in the comment section below at the end of this video who your top 5 favorite linebackers in the history of Clemson are. We're going to go through mine right now. So without further ado, starting with number 5. Now this guy, I've been telling you guys that I'm not basing these all on statistics. A lot of it has to do with what they meant to the program and that sort of thing. So number 5 on the list for me is one of my favorite Clemson Tigers at any position of all time, and that is Ben Boulware, number 10, South Carolina, born and raised kid. One of the things I love about Ben Boulware, first of all, he played like a monster. It didn't really work out too great for him in the NFL. He went and joined the Carolina Panthers practice squad. I think he went to the 49ers practice squad. At this point, I think he owns like a gym or something in the upstate of South Carolina. But Ben Boulware is a fan favorite for a lot of reasons. He grew up a Clemson fan. He grew up a South Carolina Gamecock hater. And as far as trash talking goes, this guy was the best trash talker against the Gamecocks of any Clemson football player ever, at least that I know. He didn't hold back. He genuinely does not like the Gamecocks. It's not just, a lot of these new players, they come from out of state and they get the in-state rivalry thing when they get here because they see how the fans are about it. But Ben Boulware was one of those guys before he ever put on a Clemson jersey. So he gets it more than anybody. And so first of all, he's a great player. Played from 2013 to 2016. 2016 national champion. 2016 national championship game, defensive MVP of the game, Jack Lambert Award winner, 2016 All-ACC, 2016 ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and he also holds the record at Clemson for interceptions by linebacker in one season with 5. And he's just he'll go down his jersey right there that he's wearing in that game. You're seeing on the screen there is in the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia. So when I go there, I can't wait to take a picture with that. So coming in at number 5, a fan favorite and one of my favorite Clemson Tigers of all time, the great, the one, the only Ben Boulware. Number 4 on the list. I know a lot of you guys recognize this guy, right? Stephan Anthony played from 2011 to 2014. Stephan Anthony in his career at Clemson logged 330 tackles, 34.5 tackles for loss. He started 52 games. He played 52 games and had 35 starts in his time at Clemson. 2013 second team All-ACC, 2014 first team All-ACC. And in one of the biggest wins in the past decade for Clemson, or I don't know if it's one of the biggest ones, but one of the most influential wins, I guess you should say. I've mentioned this game several times. The 2014 Orange Bowl game against Ohio State, which was, of course, Taj Boyd's last game in a Clemson uniform, Sammy Watkins' last game in a Clemson uniform. Anyway, in that game, Stephan Anthony was the defensive MVP of the game. I think he had 11 tackles against the Buckeyes in that game. And he also made the game-winning interception to seal the deal and get the win for the Tigers. He's another fan favorite. And he was, Stephan Anthony, he came along in that time. He was part of that group. He was part of that group of Nuke Hopkins and Sammy Watkins and Taj Boyd and and Andre Ellington, and so many great players on that team. And if it weren't for these guys, he's a trailblazer. He's a trendsetter. If it weren't for guys like him, Clemson wouldn't be where they are today. So Stephan Anthony is definitely one of the favorites in Clemson history. Coming in at number 3, we have one of the legends at Clemson, Jeff Davis. Jeff Davis played from 1978 to 1981. So he was obviously part of the national championship winning team in 1981 season. He left Clemson after his career with 469 tackles. Now, don't take my word for it about how great of a player that Jeff Davis was. You want to know who? You want to hear some great players that had some things to say about Jeff Davis? Well, you guys might know of this guy. You might have heard of him before. I mean, he's just a Hall of Fame player, one of the greatest college football players of all time. You know, a guy named Herschel Walker down there at Georgia. Herschel Walker said about Jeff Davis, he hit harder than anyone in college football. So that's coming from the GOAT at Georgia. You guys remember a guy, I mean, you might have heard of him before, a guy named George Rogers at the University of South Carolina, another running back. He said he knew when he played against Clemson that Jeff Davis was going to hit him so hard that it was going to hurt. So he got a lot of praises from great players on other teams. In 1981, the national championship year, he had 175 tackles that season. 175 tackles in one season. He caused 10 fumbles that season, which was a Clemson record at that time. I think he recovered 7 of them. And, of course, in 1981, during the national championship run, he was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. So he also came back to Clemson and did some coaching, I think. Jeff Davis is a legend at Clemson. He's not only one of the best Clemson linebackers of all time, he's one of the best college football players of all time. And, of course, the game has changed so much that a lot of these older players, unless you're great like he was, they get lost in the mix. So coming in at number 3, Jeff Davis. Number 2 on the list, Anthony Simmons. Anthony Simmons played from 1995 to 1997 for the Clemson Tigers. He logged in his 3 years. He only played 3 years. Who knows what would happen if he played 4. He entered the draft early. 486 tackles in 3 years. That is about 20 more than Jeff Davis had. He's one of the only players, I think the second player in Clemson history. There might have been 1 or 2 since then, but he was the second player at that time in Clemson history to be an All-American all 3 years that he played football there. He was also a finalist for the Buckeyes Award, which goes to the best linebacker in the country. His final year at Clemson, his junior year, before he entered the draft, he had 158 tackles, 25 tackles for loss, and 8 sacks. He ended up being the 15th overall pick in the draft, going to the Seattle Seahawks, where he played like 80 games or something to that effect. So Anthony Simmons coming in at number 2. A bruiser, a tackling machine, a turnover machine, All-American, badass mofo. Coming in at number 1. This is easy for me. Now, again, some people could say that Levon Kirkland, who's not even on my top 5 list, is the best linebacker of all time. Some people could say Ed McDaniel, who's not even on my list, could be the best linebacker of Clemson of all time. Some people could say some of the guys I just named, right? Jeff Davis, he's coming up as a lot of people's number 1 linebacker of all time for Clemson. There might be a little bit of recency bias here. I'm not going to lie. But this guy, he's not just a linebacker. This guy is a freak. And he's also a guy who's won a couple of national championships. And as my opinion, was the best defensive player in the country this last season. Now, you people are going to argue with me and tell me that this player or that player, Chase Young was the best player. I'm just telling you. Isaiah Simmons, number 11. First of all, Isaiah Simmons wasn't just a linebacker. He was a cornerback. He was a safety. He started out his career at Clemson as a safety. An interesting thing about Isaiah Simmons, he played from 16 to 19. He was one of these diamonds in the rough, a 3-star prospect out of Kansas. Now, how would Clemson find a 3-star player from Kansas when nobody else from any other major program? I mean, he's getting offers, but not like crazy. Now, he wouldn't get offers from Alabama and Ohio State and LSU and Georgia, right? But Clemson comes knocking on the door. Brent Venables comes knocking on the door. Why? Well, Brent Venables is from Kansas. Brent Venables played high school and college football in the state of Kansas. He had the connections with the high school coaches there, and he saw something he liked about Isaiah Simmons on film. Brought him in as a safety, and eventually moved him to linebacker, and then he would play both positions, and then he started moving all over the field. This guy is just a freak. We saw what he said at the NFL Combine this year. They asked him what position. When people ask him what position does he play, his answer to that was defense. In other words, I can play any position on the defense. He even played defensive line sometimes, defensive end. He could do it all. He can rush the passer, he can cover, and he's a tackling machine. He made one of the biggest plays in the college football playoff this year against the Ohio State Buckeyes with that interception. Without that interception, who knows what would have happened? Anyway, let's look at some of I think he finished his career with 150 tackles, 89 assisted tackles, 2019 All-American, consensus All-American, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, 2019 All-ACC, and of course, to top it off, 2019 Buckeyes Award winner, which goes to the best linebacker in the country. I feel like he is the linebacker of the future. And I'm not talking about him specifically. I'm talking about players like him. I think that what we're seeing, you know how we saw the offenses change in the NFL from you have to be a prototypical 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", prototypical pocket passer like Dan Marino, like Peyton Manning, like Tom Brady. Just go down the list. I think what you're going to see is that the linebacker position in the NFL is changing. We're already starting to see this before Isaiah Simmons. He's not the first one to do this. But the game is becoming more about speed and athleticism and hybrid players on defense, especially at linebacker. Okay, and so I think that he is going to be one of the best hybrid defensive players that we've seen in a while. He's really big, he's lightning fast, and he can do it all, and he's really smart. So, anyways, Isaiah Simmons, diamond in the rough, has been proving everybody wrong his entire college career. And he will do the same at the next level. I have no doubt about it. And I hope the Carolina Panthers somehow find a way to pick him up. I don't care if they have to trade up to get him, but I hope they get him. Anyway, there's my top 5 greatest linebackers in the history of Clemson football list. I know there's a bunch on there that I didn't put on there. Dorian O'Daniel. There's a bunch of great Clemson linebackers. But leave your top 5 and honorable mentions below. I appreciate it. You guys are all amazing and fantastic. Stay healthy. Have a great day. Pigskin Pete is checking